the stream. Welcome to tonight's stream. Oh boy, I'm excited for this one. Hello. I am excited for this one. Because we're going to be reading Book 2 of War of the Yokai. Oops, wrong button. There we go. Chat is open. I had it open the whole time and I'm stupid. Anyway. So yeah, Book 2. Book 2, let me tell ya. Between writing Book 1 and Book 2, there was a period of a good 3-4 years where I wrote, honestly, I didn't write anything. Like, I had an initial Book 2 ideas for it jotted down, a bit of an opening written, some of which I actually recycled for this, but it never meshed well. It was just, I think it was just a little too dark for me. Anyway, yeah, actually kind of think of it, it was pretty damn dark. But it all worked out for the best, because then about end of 2019, I finally, actually mid to end of late 2019, I started coming up with ideas for a good second book. So I thought to myself, okay, let's plot this whole thing out. Then once I got everything more or less idealized, we'll start writing it, right? So I started writing it in winter of 2019, and let me tell you, a few months later, I had quite a bit of free time on my hands, so I was able to just dedicate time, lots of time out of my day, either to making that Minecraft world y'all saw yesterday, or writing this. Sorry about that. I believe I finished Book 2 sometime in mid-2020. Then immediately started on to Book 3. Hey, Mocha, welcome! And then after Book 3, I'm on Book 4, now I'm on Book 5, you know the drill. But Book 2 is where my fire came back for writing. So I'm really excited to share this with y'all. So, without further ado, why don't we get started here, huh? So just a quick little rule, as before. Feel free to chat in the chat. I just won't be able to reply or react until the end because I don't want to break the flow. Okay? So, just with that said, I hope you're ready. Hope you're ready, because I'm excited. We're gonna do this book's in 4 parts. I'm gonna do 1 part a night, every night this week. Knock on wood. Okay, let's start. War of the Yokai, Book 2, Winter Snow. Written by Reiko Ayanami. Part 1. Part 1. An eerie fog crept silently across the empty streets of Fumizaki. The sun was still a few minutes or so away from peeking over the horizon, but the sky was already turning from black to a dark teal blue, signaling its imminent approach. In the distance, a bird began chirping quietly as it woke up. All was silent, peaceful, and serene. Well, it was. Come on! Groaned a sweat-soaked Usuko Takibana, her pink hair tied in a short ponytail as she sprinted down the cracked sidewalk, her footsteps echoing in the early morning air. Dressed in a white and pink top, black and pink athletic shorts, and knee-high socks, she'd been at this for the past 2 hours, running laps around the park. I understand it's important to stay in shape and all. Really, I do. But do I seriously gotta be up this early to do it? Condensing out of the early morning fog came the shimmering, smiling face of Sarah O'Malley, the silver-haired banshee who had been Uzuko's nemesis for a short time. Nowadays, she lived in the young girl's apartment, with Nonami Issei, a quiet and intelligent vampire with recently discovered familial ties to Usuko, and Rei Kobayashi, a red Oni, whose greater skills included klutziness and a heart of gold, renting the unit next door. Aye, Usko, she chuckled in her typical Irish brogue. You need to do it now to avoid being seen. Besides, it's good for the soul it is. The pinkette giggled softly to herself. So, huh? Well, I guess you'd know, wouldn't you? She teased, picking up the pace just a little. In response to that quip, the spectral girl manifested a transparent hand and bonked Usuko on the back of the head. You want to say that again, lassie? She teased right back, blowing an ephemeral raspberry at the girl. Maybe you forgot who's the one who kicked your little pink butt last time. Oh, ha ha, laughed Usuko sardonically, rolling her eyes. Yeah, that fight totally wasn't one-sided at all. A spirit versus a human. Totally legit. Also, I was still hospitalized, so just what in the hell? You're just jealous of me phasing skills, she replied, mentally shaking her butt. And I kept my word, didn't I? I told you I'd stay physical. You just never asked how long I'd stay that way. Why, you little... mumbled Usuko as the two arrived at the towering structure that was Ayanami Industries HQ. In truth, both the building and company were a front for the organization, Gardna, a worldwide peacekeeping organization dedicated to protecting monsterkind from humans and vice versa. Entering the main lobby, they were greeted by the familiar face of Nonami, tired as ever. Don't worry, she sighed with a small smile when Usuko asked why she was up so close to dawn. My shift ended half an hour ago, but Mrs. Nekomoto wanted me to stay long enough for this meeting. She does so hate to repeat herself. About that time, the doors opened and yet another familiar face joined the group. It was Rei, looking even more bedraggled than Nonami, though for the exact opposite reason, as she stumbled into the room. I just woke up, she slurred, rubbing the sleep out of her bloodshot eyes. Forget to, sit in a warm work. Collapsing into a nearby chair, Rei immediately began snoring, much to the bemusement of the final arrival, Emiko Ayame. Emi-chan! Smiled Usuko, rushing to give her best friend a hug. It would seem that even the normally prim and proper Emiko wasn't exactly a morning person. Her azure hair, usually kept in a ponytail, was hanging loose and long down her back, and her outfit was little more than wrinkled black sweats and a green jacket, hastily thrown on at the last minute. Hey, Uso-chan, she replied, hugging her right back tightly. The girls had been through a rough patch recently, when the Blue Oni had been controlled by mysterious nanobots and forced to attack Usuko. Fortunately, the extenuating circumstances had all but cleared the brunette's name, though she still felt understandably guilty for the terrible things she had been forced to do. 1 second. Through it all, though, Usuko had always been there for her friend, even if Emiko still hadn't completely forgiven herself. Emi-chan, grunted a red-faced Usuko. I can't breathe. Embarrassed, Emiko relaxed her grip. Sorry, Usuko, I just get excited sometimes and forget my own strength. At that moment, in walked Lydia Nekomoto, her violet feline ears perked at attention. She, still wearing a sling on her right arm, which had been badly broken during Usuko's brief possession by the entity claiming to be Aramana's. The cat girl did a quick head count. Only 4? No, there was a telltale spectral shimmer in the air near Nonami, indicating Sarah's presence. All 5 girls were accounted for. Her eyes then fell on the slumbering Rei. If not fully present, she mumbled quietly with a chuckle before addressing the group. Morning, ladies. My apologies for the hour, be it early or late, but given your schedules, it was the only time I could get y'all together. It's quite all right, ma'am, replied Nonami, covering a yawn. But with all due respect, might we go through this as quickly as possible? My coffin is calling out to me. Lydia smirked, nodding. It's been decided by the powers that be that the 5 of you are to be made a proper unit within Gardner. I know this is a major step up for y'all, so if there's any uncertainties, now's the time to mention them. Usuko raised her hand. Let me guess, asked Lydia, used to Usuko's questioning nature. You don't understand, or you don't know what I'm talking about. The pink cat nodded sheepishly, and the cat girl folded her arms. Well, arm. How to put it? You ever seen Power Rangers? Sorry, no. Ninja Turtles? Nope. Beetleborgs? What? Kamen Rider? I hardly know her. Oh, come on! We're going to be like the Sailor Scouts, Usuko, interjected Emiko, her patience starting to wear down a bit. Only employed by a paragovernmental agency and without the... Remembering Usuko's other form, she corrected herself. Well, mostly without the magical girls, that is. She then tousled her best friend's hair, smiling. Oh! She replied, suddenly way more interested in the discussion. That's awesome! But, what do we do? Well, there's more to being an agent than just going out on patrols or reporting activity, explained Lydia. There will be times you'll be called on for more dangerous and/or specialized missions. For example, she continued, looking over at Nonami, Ms. Issei and I used to be on a unit that specialized in covert ops and, though rarely, assassinations. Nonami nodded in acknowledgement. You were an assassin? Usuko exclaimed, half surprised, half concerned. Whoa! Lydia smirked wryly. Were implies past tense, Ms. Takibana. Noticing the worried look on Uzuko's face, she quickly clarified, adding, I'm kidding. Ever since Carrie, and especially Claire, were born, I've had to step back from that side of things. Doesn't mean I've lost my edge, though. Well, mostly. She thought to herself, glancing down at her broken arm. I, would rather not be an assassin, muttered Usuko. Don't worry. Don't worry, your team Don't worry, your team most likely won't be in that field. You don't have the temperament for it, quite honestly. That's all well and good, Sarah chimed in, but what exactly will we be doing then? Most likely, responded Lydia, investigations and threat management. In simpler terms, first response. The council has taken this whole Aramane situation very seriously, so there's been an uptick in these teams being formed. Since the five of you have the most experience with all of this, she motioned vaguely with her good arm. Teaming you up was a no-brainer. Plus, y'all have some common ground with one another. How you figure? Replied Emiko. Simple. Each one of you has had a significant encounter, prior experience, or were already close with two members of this team. Nanami, you've been partnered with Miss Kobayashi for the past 3 years, correct? Nanami nodded. And Ms. O'Malley, you knew Sarah as a child, and were good friends for at least a century, yes? Aye, that we were, smiled Sarah wistfully. And it probably goes without saying that her connection to Usuko is quite strong. Usuko blushed. Yeah, you could say that. She'd already accidentally called her Aunt Maria twice, much to Usuko's chagrin. Emiko snorted. Ours definitely goes without saying, so let's keep it that way. Lydia nodded. The other linchpin would obviously be you, Miss Takibana, Lydia said, to Usuko's surprise. You, of course, have known Princess Aame for many years, but you've also shown a good deal of promise working with Ms. Kobayashi and Nanami. As for Ms. O'Malley, I can still sense some animosity there, but I'm sure you're both working through it. Usuko stifled a laugh. Yeah, they'd made some progress, she guessed. True, having Sarah around did make her feel a bit safer, especially at night. Though she had implicitly forbidden the Banshee from her bedroom. That was her sanctum sanctorum, damn it. Still, Sarah had definitely grown on the Pinkette ever since their first less-than-stellar encounter. Lydia glanced down at her phone. Oof, would you look at the time? I need to get going. I'll leave the rest of the details for a later date. But for now, just treat things business as usual, alright? Nonami nodded in acknowledgement. Understood, ma'am. Lydia nodded and began making her way out the front door. The sound of a motorcycle could be heard peeling out of the lot as Nonami turned to the group. Alright then, she announced. For now, you're dismissed, but we'll be meeting back up here at 2,000 hours. Understood? Emiko scoffed. I'm sorry, but I don't recall electing you as our leader. I certainly didn't vote for you at any rate. Slightly taken aback, Nonami quickly replied. I assumed it was obvious, given what Mrs. Nakamoto said about me being the linchpin of our team and all. She also said Usuko was the other common denominator. Emiko shot back. Maybe she should be our leader. No, what? No way, exclaimed Usuko. I'm good. Yep, no, thank you. Emiko rolled her eyes. I was kidding, Uso-chan. But in all seriousness, has anyone here ever been chosen to lead in any capacity? Raise your hand. Raising her hand, Emiko noticed Usuko slowly raising hers as well. Being picked to play the leader of the Lollipop Guild in our 4th grade school play doesn't count, Usuko. The pinkette slowly lowered her hand. And besides, I'm royalty. The Blue Oni Princess Ayomea. Pretty sure I outrank you there. Yeah, wanna tell her, Nanami? Whispered Sarah with a knowing chuckle. Or should I? Tell me what? Inquired the brunette, eyebrow raised. The vampire sighed, shifting her weight from side to side. It was clear, or whatever information she was about to give, it was clear she was hesitant to do so. Well, technically, that is to say, I'm the queen of the vampires. So, no, you don't. A silence hung over the group for a moment before Emiko let out a dumbfounded, what? Right, that's not the right read. It's more like a, what? Or, what? There we go, that's the right read. Sorry. Before the argument could go much further, Usuko suddenly had a genius idea. Hey, I know! Why don't we settle this another way? Oh? What did you have in mind, Usuko? Asked Nonami, grateful that someone had broken the awkwardness and changed the subject. The pinkette grinned. 3 words. Video, game, tournament. Emiko smirked. There's the Usuko she knew and loved. Sure, I'm game. Pun absolutely intended. What say you, your gracefulness? Ignoring the barb, Nonami replied somewhat snidely. Certainly. This way you might actually have a chance. But can it wait for a bit? I've been up since the crack of dusk and could really use some sleep. Usuko nodded in agreement, still grinning. Of course. Let's meet up at the arcade at 8 tonight. Do you know where it is? I believe so, replied Nonami. Unless there's more than one in this city? Usuko shook her head. Nah, not anymore. Plus, Emmy's uncle owns the place, so we'll be able to have the run of the joint. Several hours later, everyone but Nonami had gathered outside the arcade. Ooh, sure is nippy tonight, Emiko commented. I know it's December, but I can't remember the last time it was quite this chilly out. Yeah, I'll say, replied Ray, teeth chattering. If I'd known it was gonna be this cold, I'd worn a jacket or something. Usuko, who had worn a hoodie under her coat, took the coat off and offered it to Ray. I appreciate it, Usuko, smiled Ray, motioning to her wide frame. But I don't think it'll fit. Just then, the sound of running could be heard approaching the group. Nonami, out of breath, stopped just short of crashing into the doors. At least, Usuko thought it was Nonami. I am so incredibly sorry, she apologized through labored breathing. I couldn't the outfit I intended to wear, and ended up searching every inch of my room before I gave up and just put this on instead. Ooh, I'm actually a little lightheaded after reading that. Getting a better look at what the vampire was wearing, Usuko couldn't help but giggle. To describe the usually well-dressed girl's outfit as uncharacteristic would be an understatement. Under an old-looking brown petticoat was a pair of worn-out, bright yellow basketball shorts, two mismatched socks, one knee-high in green, the other ankle-high in white, and a hot pink tank top 2 sizes too big that said "Juicy" on the back in big black letters. To top the entire ensemble off, however, was the fact that Nonami was apparently wearing a pair of glasses with lenses that could best be described as Coke bottle, and her hair was an absolute shaggy mess. We can put this off if you want, said Usuko, barely holding back laughter. Nonami vigorously shook her head, her already messy hair becoming even more scattered. No way. We're all here, and I'm not about to be in imposition on you all. Let's go. With that, they entered the arcade. It had used to be a Western brand supermarket, but the chain had flopped miserably in Japan, and so the building had been snatched up by Emiko's uncle, who had refurbished the massive structure into a retro gamer's paradise. Okay, I'm going to stop reading for just 1 second. For context, basically think Walmart, but it's been refurbished into an arcade. Inside the arcade was like traveling back in time to the 80s. Almost every machine in there was old, with such titles as Pac-Man and Space Invaders, as well as many various movie-themed pinball machines, most of which were Western sci-fi films, Usuko noted. A few modern machines and games were intermixed, certain arcade staples, and UFO catchers, but suffice to say, you could spend an entire fortune in yen coins here and still not be able to play it all. It's absolutely massive, said Sarah in absolute awe. I've never been in one of these before. So many lights. Emiko nodded. You'll likely never find one quite this big anywhere else, but it's certainly an arcade like any other. We used to come here all the time after school and burn our allowances on these machines, she said wistfully. I wonder if I still have the high score on Arkanoid. So, what are the rules then? Asked Nonami as she side-eyed an open Tetris machine. First to 3 wins? High score? Usuko pondered Nonami's question. This was her idea, so it would be up to her to come up with the rules. Okay, I got it, she proclaimed a moment later. Ray, Sarah, and I will each pick a different game for you to play. Then the 2 of you will also pick a game. Whoever has the highest total score at the end of this wins. So it may behoove us to choose a game with a large high score threshold, then? Nonami asked somewhat rhetorically. Very well, I think I have one in mind. What if, 2 people pick the same game? Ray chimed in. She'd been keeping quiet since they'd entered. All the stimulation around her was sending her into ADD overdrive. In response, Usuko motioned to the aisles and aisles of cabinets. I doubt that'll happen, Ray. If it does... Well, let's each take turns picking. That way we can mostly avoid it altogether. That seemed to please her. With that out of the way, the girls each went in their own separate directions, searching for the game they'd choose for the competition. Half an hour later, they'd regrouped, Sarah and Ray flanking Usuko, all beaming with excitement. So, what did you pick for us? Inquired Emiko, smirking. Indeed, added Nonami with just a hint of anticipation in her voice. I too am quite curious. Usuko turned to Sarah. Your pick is probably the quickest of the bunch, so do you want to start things off? The Banshee nodded, turning to the 2 competitors. Right this way, lassies, she called teasingly, floating towards a box with 5 shallow holes, each containing something reflective and brown within. On the side of the box was a large foam mallet. Whack-a-mole, Sarah proclaimed. According to Usuko, these are all over American arcades and such. Basically, you time when the buggers will pop up, and when they do, you have about 2 seconds to smack the little guy back down. Seems simple enough, stated Nonami. I suppose you may go first, if you wish, Emiko. Very well, smirked Emiko, taking up the mallet like Thor hoisting Mjolnir. Watch a pro work her magic. Jamming a token into the machine, it immediately lit up and began playing a cheerful tune. After about 2 seconds, the first mole popped up, and was immediately banished back into its den by Emiko's mighty swing. And then another dared showed its rodent mug before the Blue Oni princess, and was cast back as quickly as the first, as was each mole in the sequence. Sometimes 2 would pop up at once, and Emiko would deftly strike one, then the other, in a single fluid motion that made it seem like the mallet was merely an extension of her own hand. When it was done, she'd accumulated a score of 2,800, a new personal record for herself. Beat that if you can, she said, handing the mallet to Nonami as they traded places. Gladly, she sniffed before inserting a coin into the machine, as Emiko had before. It took a couple more seconds than it had before for the first mole to pop up, and when it did, Nonami jumped a little. She had been expecting it, sure, but even she didn't know where it would come from. So shocked was she that she actually missed, the mole retreating in victory back into its domain. Muttering foul curses under her breath, she steeled herself, waiting for the next opportunity. What's the matter, Nonami? Afraid of a little mole? Teased Emiko. If this is too much for you, I'm sure we can find something more suitable, Something less advanced? Tuning her out, Nonami proceeded to absolutely devastate the remaining moles and, after a few minutes, the entire machine. A bit of her true strength had come out, and the machine was practically smashed to pieces, the scoreboard weakly flickering to display her score of 1,200. Oops, she mumbled. Current score, Emiko, 2,800, Nonami, 1,200. All right, cheered Ray, bouncing with glee. It's my turn now. Practically flying to the next machine, Nonami was both empowered and not surprised by the Red Oni's choice. Street Fighter II. The classic version, too, she noted. Rules are simple here, said Usuko, handing each girl another token. You'll play as Ryu and Ken, since this one was made before they had different moves, so they're basically the same character. You'll do best 5 of 7 matches. Each victory will equal 500 points, and then at the end, your scores will be added up. Any questions? Do I have to be Ken? Asked Emiko. I'm a lot better as Blanca. Yes, Sammy, sighed Usuko with a chuckle. This way, the only advantage either of you might have is your skill level. At that, Nonami couldn't help but let loose a sinister, dark and bubbling laugh she'd been holding in. And what, might I ask, was that for? Inquired the brunette, eyes widened in mild surprise. The fact that I've already won, she smiled in reply. I've been playing this game since before you were born, Emiko. You don't stand a chance. Oh, it is on! Snapped Emiko, grabbing the joystick. It didn't take long for Nonami to absolutely crush Emiko. The Blue Oni never stood a chance. Nonami, 3,700. Emiko, 2,800. Ugh, groaned Emiko in both annoyance and embarrassment. Remind me to never do that again. I did try to warn you, teased the prideful Nonami. Being a vampire gives you a lot of free time. This is how I chose to spend mine. She turned to Usuko, whose turn it was now to pick a game. So what's your choice, Usuko? We've had a test of timing, a test of strategy, short as it was. So what have you planned? Usuko entered a contemplative pose as she answered. Well, see, I wanted to make sure I picked something unique. I knew what Sarah and Ray were going with, and I'm pretty sure I know what Emmy's going with. Emiko smirked at that statement. Yeah, odds were good Usuko knew darn well what game she had picked. The game no one had ever beaten her at. Ever. So I decided to go with something a bit classic. DDR. Emiko's face dropped, while both Nonami and Rei sighed, the latter unable to stifle a giggle. "Oh, come on," groaned Usako. "What did I do? Seriously." The blue Oni laid a hand on her friend's shoulder, taking her aside for a moment. "Uso-chan," Emiko said quietly, "I know there's a lot you still don't know about all of this and about me and my people." She took off her glasses, revealing her true purple, slit-pupil eyes. Blue Oni have let's call it a history when it comes to dance. Specifically in that we don't. Ever. To many of us, dancing is a sacred act reserved for the worship of the gods. She paused, taking a deep breath and collecting her thoughts. I'll move the chat box a little bit here. There we go. I'm sorry, Emiko, apologized Usako, bowing deeply. "I honestly didn't know, and I didn't mean any disrespect to you. Honest." The brunette smiled, putting her glasses back on and holding a hand out to her friend. "Like I said, I know you didn't, Uso-chan. It's alright. I forgive you. But why don't you pick something else, Nodding, Usako scanned the area for a two-player game. Donkey Kong? Maybe if they took it in turns, but she had a feeling Nonami would pull another Street Fighter. Pac-Man? With those two, it was too easy to go on forever. Arcade port of Skyrim? Way too difficult to determine a score. Also, whose bright idea was it to even port that? Darn you, Todd. Yes, I actually wrote that. That is a line in my book. I ported Skyrim to my book. I don't... And then she saw it, gleaming like a beacon in the sea of classic gaming. Okay, how about Dig Dug? It's a single-player game, but you two can take turns. How about it? Both girls considered for a moment before nodding in agreement. Then it settled. One game, one life. You ready? Considering I won the last bout, said Nonami, I believe the honor of going first belongs to me. Inserting her token, the game came to life before her, and Nonami realized she had no idea what she was doing. On screen was a yellow, orange, and red striped background, apparently with indicating soil depth, with blue up top meant to indicate the sky. Inside the ground were several sprite creatures. One looked like an apple with goggles on, and the other a cartoonish green dragon. After a few seconds of Nonami flailing around on the surface, the apple creature disappeared, turning into a ghostly monster face that began floating through the ground towards her. How do I... she exclaimed as her character shot out a strange, rope-like apparatus. That must be the attack button, she decided. So focused was she on trying to figure out what to do that she didn't see the look of confusion on Emiko's face as well. What she couldn't have known was that Emi had never even heard of this game until now. She trusted her best friend to know what she was doing, but Emiko also knew Usako had a bit of a devious streak in her that occasionally showed itself in situations like this. Finally, Nonami managed to strike one of the creatures with her cord weapon, and on instinct began spamming the attack button over and over. Soon it inflated and popped, and Nonami sighed. One down, she thought as she was immediately killed by the dragon, which had snuck up on her. Damn it! She screamed, causing a wave of wide eyes across the entire group. No one had ever heard Nonami swear before, not even Rei. Anyway, Emiko, it's your turn. Stepping up to the cabinet, Emi took a quick moment, to see if there were any instructions written on the side. These machines often did, though older ones usually had too much damage and wear to make any text legible. Fortunately, this one wasn't. All right, watch and learn, she stated, firing the cabinet up. This is how a princess wins. As soon as she could move, Emiko began digging down towards the dragon, which had toasted Nonami, and entered its cave, shooting and popping it before deftly moving on to the apple creature, and repeating the process. Once the level was over, she was warped back to the top where an extra critter was added, and the game repeated. She continued on for a few more levels, accruing a solid 1,100 points before dying. And that's that, she said, wiping her hands together. Nonami, 3,800. Emiko, 3,900. Now nearly neck and neck, it was Nonami's turn to choose the game, and if Emiko thought she'd suffered while playing Street Fighter, she hadn't seen anything yet. At least, that was what Nonami thought as they approached a very familiar-looking cabinet. Mario Bros. If you can beat me at this, she said, looking Emiko dead in the eyes, I will be genuinely impressed. Go ahead. You won the last bout, so you're up first. Yeah, sure thing, said Emiko, a small amount of hesitation creeping into her voice. She wouldn't admit it aloud, certainly not in front of Nonami, but she didn't have a good record with this game. Sure, she could make it through the early levels, no problem. A blindfolded monkey probably could. It was when the pace picked up around level 15 that she started having trouble. There was just so much clutter on the screen, and if it wasn't the crabs killing her, it was the fireballs with their random patterns that came in from the sides that did her in. Still, she had to do this. Oh, okay. With her and Nonami's scores so close, all she had to do was keep it that way. Play it safe. She knew the next game they'd play, she would win by a landslide. No one could beat her at that game. Of that, Emiko was confident. Inserting a coin, the game fired up, and, as expected, she got through the early levels with ease, not even using the POW block. But then she made a critical mistake in her timing, landing on a fly that should have been knocked over but wasn't. One life gone, and it was only level 17. Blast, she muttered under her breath, gearing up again. Continuing on, her next mistake came at level 22, when she attempted to use the nearly depleted POW block on the last enemy of the level, a blue crab. Unfortunately, in the heat of the moment, Emiko forgot that the crabs take 2 hits, colliding with it and losing her second life. She was now on her last chance. Great. Steeling herself, Emiko made it through the level on the second attempt. However, on the very next level, she made her final miscalculation, spearing the poor plumber on one of the spiked turtles and thus getting a game over. 23 levels and a final score of 17,200. Not terrible, said Nonami, shredding towards the machine. For an amateur. Now watch how a master does things. As the four watched, Nonami blew through each level in rapid succession. Nothing even giving her a remote challenge. However, even someone of her skill level was prone to mistakes, and the vampire fumbled the controls at the wrong moment, losing her first life at level 20. Strange, she thought. I shouldn't be having any issues this early. Chalking it up to a bit of mental exhaustion from the rapid pace of games they'd been playing, she proceeded to make it another 3 levels, crushing Emiko's lead, but then something went wrong. The machine had started smoking, and the screen flickered and died. Oh, bugger! Shouted Sarah. I'll go get your uncle, Emiko. Please do, she replied as Sarah flew off towards the back room. Usuko, panicking, summoned a bucket of water and was about to throw it on the machine when Nonami stopped her. If it's an electrical fire, water will only make it worse. You need to smother it, either with a fire extinguisher or perhaps some dirt or baking flour. Something I doubt you have on hand. Yeah, said Usuko sheepishly. Don't have a spell for that yet. I'm surprised, replied Emiko with a small laugh. As I recall, the last time you used one, it was to great success. Yeah, that's true, admitted the pinkette with a blush. I did manage to force an Oni to the ground, huh? Glancing at the machine, Nonami sighed. Let me say it again. Glancing at the machine, Nonami sighed. My score was likely 1,000 points or so higher than yours, Emiko. What say we call it even and move on to your choice of game, Before Emi could answer, a large hulking figure came soaring over, landing with a thud in front of the group. Hey, Uncle Shigeru, said Emiko. Sorry about that. I think Nonami may have pushed the thing a bit too far. The vampire bowed in apology as the blue Oni turned wordlessly to his machine and got to work fixing it. Nonami, 20,000. Emiko, 20,000. So what, may I ask, is your game of choice, Your Majesty? Asked Nonami as Emiko led the group to a more western section of the arcade. Oh, you'll see, vampire, teased Emiko, who was walking at a slower pace than before. Everyone in the group was starting to get tired, even Nonami, despite these being her peak hours. I'll say this much, said Usuko. It's not a conventional choice, that's for sure. Finally, at their destination, against the far western wall of the arcade, was Emiko's choice. It was about 12 feet long from end to end, and about 7 feet tall. Starting at the end closest to the player was a ramp, angled upwards just slightly, and at the end were a series of holes and concentric circles, each with a different marked point value. Going down the right was a covered tunnel containing 9 heavy plastic balls. On the left side was a display with a marker that counted the number of those balls that were in play, while the counter on the right indicated the amount of points the player had earned. Several of these machines were lined up next to each other, a few which had different themes or were clearly from different eras. Skee-ball? Asked Nonami incredulously. Skee-ball, replied Emiko, a sinister smirk crossing her lips. You may have Street Fighter. You may have even had Mario had it not ignited. But me, I have Skee-ball, and no one has ever beaten me at Skee-ball. Ever. First time for everything, stated Nonami, crossing her arms. Game on! Both girls stood in front of their respective lanes, a look of sheer determination chiseled onto their features. Everything had led to this, and only one of them could win. May the best woman win, said Emiko, inserting her token as Nonami did the same. Indeed, replied Nonami. One shall stand, and one shall fall. Usuko blinked. Did Nonami just say what she thought she said? With an audible clattering, the balls fell down the track and landed at the base of the machine. Immediately, Emiko grabbed the first one and chucked it straight up the middle, having put a bit of spin on it so when it reached the ramp, it spun and veered right, straight into the 100-point bucket. All of this happened in less than a second, and even Nonami was having trouble keeping up with Emiko's movements, as she proceeded to send 3 more balls into the same hole. In her tiredness, she nearly forgot she was also playing. And began rolling her own balls up the ramp. The first 2 landed in 50-pointers. Not bad, but if Emiko was as good as she claimed, Nonami knew she was in trouble. By now, Emiko had already rolled her 7th ball, and had once again scored 100 points. At the rate she was going, the Oni was on track to have a perfect score of 900. As she was about to let loose the 8th ball, a loud shout of frustration bellowed from where the group had been moments earlier. Apparently, Emiko's uncle was having a lot of trouble fixing the busted game. Unfortunately, the shout threw Emiko off, and her ball landed in the gutter for a solid 0 points. Seeing this, Nonami threw her 3rd ball. It landed in a 100-pointer. It wasn't as though she'd never played this game before. The vampire just wasn't as practiced as Emiko clearly was. Seeing her flub like that filled Nonami with hope. If she could just get 100s, she could perhaps tie with the Oni princess she'd gained a serious respect for. Emiko's mind was racing. She'd never made such a blunder, not since she was a kid. Her hopes of a perfect game dashed. She steeled herself, throwing the next ball with the same calculated power and spin that had been the key to her skill for as long as she could remember. 800 points, she thought to herself. You can still win with 800 points. It's a respectable score. Just one more throw and we're good. Her final ball landing in the same pocket, Emiko's final score was 800. As a decent number of tickets started flowing out of the machine, she looked over to see how her adversary was facing. True, Nonami may be a friend anywhere else, but right here, right now, the 2 girls were fierce competitors, and only one could win. Glancing at the scoreboard, Nonami was on ball 6 and had 500 points. Apparently, she had figured out a similar trick to Emiko's, something that made Emi's stomach drop a bit. True, Nonami had no way of beating her, But that didn't mean Emiko wanted a tie. How would a tie even work? Would there be a sudden death round? Nonami glanced at the ball in her hand. Or was it hands? The world had started spinning for her a little. Still, she couldn't give up yet. She had to win. For her own dignity, if nothing else. Tossing it down the track, Nonami watched the 5 spheres roll down 5 tracks and into 5 100-point buckets. Just 2 more to go. Stumbling forward, she had an idea. What if she were to toss both at once? Here goes nothing, she said, reaching down and gripping them tightly. Lunging forward, she hurled the spheres down the track with a shout of, "I will not be defeated!" So hard did she throw them that the friction against the track left a trail of smoke as they landed in each of the 100-point pockets. Success, she muttered, collapsing into an unconscious heap. Wow, said Usuko as Rei rushed over to check on Nonami. I didn't expect things to get this serious. Or for Emi-chan to tie. Is Nonami okay? The red Oni nodded. Yeah, I think I know what happened. She's got, a bad habit of forgetting to feed when she's excited, so she's low on blood. Using her fingernail to slice open her palm, Rei held the dripping blood over Nonami's mouth. Immediately, the vampire's eyes fluttered open, and she looked around. Did I win? Usuko looked over at Emiko, who was also quite exhausted and was sat with her back against the machine. No, she said with a sigh, but neither did Emiko. It was a draw. Oh, lovely. We should do this again, said Emiko, turning to face Nonami. Only this time, we just pick one game neither of us know and use that to decide. Deal? Closing her eyes, Nonami replied. Deal. With the rematch set, the group made their way to the exit. Rei was the first to notice that it had started snowing while they'd been in the arcade. Hey, yeah, wow! Exclaimed Usuko in surprise, before smirking a little. Whoa, is that the Aurora Borealis? Aurora Borealis, asked the thoroughly exhausted Emiko. At this time of year, in this part of the country, localized entirely above this arcade. Yes. Can I see it? No. Name aside, said a shivering Rei, carrying the unconscious Nonami on her back. This is, kind of weird. It doesn't usually start snowing in Fumizaki until late December. Plus, I don't, remember the forecast calling for anything. Aye, agreed Sarah thoughtfully. 'Tis an odd occurrence it is. Something to investigate, perhaps. You lot should head home for now, though. Leave it to me. I'll scope out the situation and see if there's anything out of the ordinary going on. You sure you don't need help? Offered Usuko. I mean, I don't mind. Aye, replied Sarah. It's late and you're fleshy. I don't need to sleep and I don't get cold. So this works out perfect. I appreciate the concern though, Usuko. Really. Well, okay, said the pinkette hesitantly. If you're sure. Take care, Sarah-san, and good luck. Off with ye, she said jokingly, making a shooing motion as her visible form dissipated. Run home before you catch your death out here. The next morning. Morning, sis, greeted Kuroko Takibana as she watched her older sister trudge out from her bedroom. Might wanna, check the news. Still groggy, despite waking up at nearly 10 a.m., Usuko turned on the television, which had been conveniently turned to the local news. Our coverage of the mysterious ice sculpture that appeared in Tsushima Park last night continues. Witnesses reported hearing the sound of someone speaking late last night, though no one so far has come forward who could make out what may have been said. Soon after, a loud scream, which some have compared to something out of a horror movie, woke the surrounding area. The source of the voice and the scream remain unknown, but what was left behind has provided even more questions. This strangely shaped block of ice. The camera turned to show an oddly shaped ice formation, roughly 5 feet tall and almost vaguely human-shaped. Is this the result of a well-planned prank, or something else entirely? We may never know. Back to you, Ida. Kuriko turned to her sister, eyes wide. It's Sarah-san. I don't know how, but it is. I can see her in there, but I guess they can't. That's impossible, Kuriko, she replied, equally as baffled. I mean, Sarah's a banshee. She can't just get frozen, right? About that time, the phone rang. Usuko recognized the number as Emiko's cell phone. Hey, Emi-chan, what's up? Usuko, are you watching the news right now? Yeah, actually. You see it too? Sarah O'Malley, frozen solid in the middle of Tsushima Park. No one else able to see her since they don't have Amaso? Yup. I didn't even know it was possible for spirits to... You and me both, Emi-chan, replied Usuko, finishing Emiko's thought for her. So, what do we do? I mean, we can't just leave her there, right? No, but... said Emiko, pondering the difficult situation. I'll meet you there in about half an hour. Sound good? Sure thing. See you then, Emi-chan. Ending the call, Usuko headed over to her closet to find a coat. Better check the temp, mumbled Usuko as she opened the slow-to-load weather app on her phone. I'll definitely need a coat, though. Hey, sis, inquired Kuriko. Mind if I come with? Yeah, sure, replied Usuko absentmindedly. Just bundle up or some... The app had finally loaded, and Usuko's eyes nearly bugged out of their sockets. 0? She practically shouted. It's 0 degrees out? It's never been that cold, not here at least. She turned to where her sister was standing. Sorry, Kuro, it's way too cold out. You need to stay here. But Usuko, the smaller Pinkette protested. I want to go with you. The elder sibling nodded. I know you do, kid. I know. But it's really just too cold out. I don't want you getting sick or anything. While I'm gone, make sure you turn the faucets onto a trickle, okay? And close the blinds, turn the heat up. Usuko, I know how to prep for cold weather, Kuriko said, rolling her eyes. Great, cheered Usuko. Then hop to it, alright? I really gotta go, but I promise I'll make it up to you later, okay? Kuriko sighed and nodded in acceptance. Her sister did have a point, she guessed. Once Kuriko had left, Usuko turned her attention back to the closet. She didn't own any coats suited for weather this cold, that was for sure. But if she layered... 10 minutes later. Alright, one last check. From head to toe, Usuko was covered in warmth-preserving clothes and looked as though she'd gained nearly 20 pounds. T-shirt? Check. Sweater? Check. Thermal undies? Check. Sweats? Check. Extra sweats? Check. Snow pants? Check. Mittens? Check. Gloves? Check. Parka? Check. Balaclava? Check. Scarf? Wait, balaclava? Usuko took off the face-covering headgear and examined it. When did I buy a balaclava? She shrugged. Must be Sarah's, she said, putting it back on. Now, where was I? Right. Scarf? Check. And, of course, 3 pairs of socks and snow boots. Look out, cold weather. Here comes Usuko Takibana. Emiko pulled her phone out of her jacket pocket for the 10th time in a row to check the clock. Of course, Usuko was running late. What else did she expect? I swear, that girl never does anything quickly. She was probably born at a leisurely pace. Just then, over a hill, she saw it. A nearly round bundle of winter clothing, slowly making its way towards her. Oh, Lord, sighed Emiko, embarrassed. Please tell me that's not who I think it is. Emi-chan! A muffled voice called out from within the mound. Usuko? She asked hesitantly, unsure if her eyes were playing tricks on her. Is that you? Yeah? Usuko wanted to take another step closer, and tripped over her own feet, landing face first in a snowbank. Unable to pick herself back up due to her currently severely inhibited mobility, the Pinkette began flailing wildly in panic. Face-palming, Emiko reached down to help her friend up. Come on now, Usuko, she sighed. It's not that cold out. You didn't have to bundle up quite so much. A muffled sound of protest came from behind Usuko's scarf. What? Exasperated, Usuko tore the scarf and balaclava off, nearly shouting, "I said it is too!" Emiko shrugged. "You've always been like that, Emi-chan. Like, don't you get cold?" A look of realization passed over her face. "Oh wait, is it because you're an..." Emiko clamped her hand over Usuko's mouth before she could finish her sentence. "Usuko, there might not be anyone around," she whispered harshly, "but you can't go saying that stuff in public. You understand?" Usuko blushed in embarrassment and nodded. "And for the record," Emiko finished quietly, "yes, we're acclimated to living at higher altitudes, so our bodies run about 8 to 9 degrees higher than humans, and retain that heat for much longer." As they made their way further into the park, Usuko pondered the implications. "Is that why you never go to the nurse? Because they'd see your body temp is, like, way too high?" The brunette nodded, smiling. "I made that mistake just once, in first grade. There was, more than a bit of panic, as you might expect." Usuko giggled. "I'd imagine so." Arriving near the scene, the two girls realized there were still several onlookers near where Sarah had apparently been frozen solid. "Crud, what do we do?" whispered Usuko. "We can't just waltz in there, right? They'd ask a lot of questions we do not have answers for." "Leave that to me," smirked Emiko, strutting confidently forward. "I do beg your pardon, but this whole mystery is a bit more mundane than you're likely hoping." The camera crew turned their lenses towards her, and Usuko noticed Emiko's right hand twirl and twist, ever so slightly, behind her back before clenching it shut. "That's the unfortunate result of a science fair project gone awry, I'm afraid. My good friend, Sarah, wanted to see what would happen to a large amount of water under pressure in below zero temperatures. As you can see..." She motioned to the ice, now visibly smaller and now appeared to be coming from out of the remains of a large balloon. "It went, rather poorly. The scream you heard was likely her reaction to the freezing cold water splashing her in the face." "And the reports of voices. She's a vlogger, need I say more? Actually, I'm gonna actively change that line. She's a YouTuber, need I say more?" Seemingly satisfied, if not also rather disappointed, the news crews began to disperse. After about 10 minutes, it was just Emiko and Usuko. With a sigh of relief, the blue Oni relaxed her hand, and the ice went back to its original shape. "Not my best work," she mumbled to herself, "but it did the job." "Whoa!" exclaimed Usuko. "How'd you do that, Emmy? Was that like magic or..." Emiko shook her head, her long blue hair flowing with the movement. "No, not exactly anyway. I only have a natural illusion power. It's normally used on ourselves, but it can be used on the surrounding environment by particularly gifted Oni." "You must be pretty talented then, huh?" replied Usuko, winking. "But then, that's my Emiko for ya." "Oh, Uso-chan, please," she said, blushing a little. "I assure you, that wasn't exactly a simple thing. It took most of my energy to keep it up that long, but, thank you. Anyway, now we need to figure out how to get her out of here." "Oh, I have that covered," said Usuko, who was grinning a little too wide for Emiko's liking. "Watch this." Summoning her magical girl form, Usuko took aim at the frozen Sarah with her solid gold baseball bat. "En fuego!" From the tip of the bat came a ring of fire, which encircled the frozen banshee, quickly melting the ice around her head. Before I shout, I'm gonna sip. "Aye! Took you long enough, didn't it?" she practically screamed. "How the hell did you even get like that to begin with?" asked Emiko, sighing. Usuko was starting to get a little too into it, muttering about the pretty colors, and Emmy just wanted to get out of there. "That's a hell of a story it is," shouted Sarah as she continued to thaw. "But your short answer is that we got a snow woman on our hands." "A Yuki-onna?" inquired Emiko, eyebrows perking up. "You're certain?" "I suppose that would explain the sudden cold snap." "I'm pretty sure, at least," replied the banshee, now completely free of the ice. For some reason, though, both Emiko and Usuko had diverted their gazes elsewhere. Baffled, she said, "What's the matter? You're looking pretty red in the face for a blue oni there, your majesty. Still not turning to look at her, Usako instead pointed downwards. Glancing down, Sarah realized her clothes had been all but shredded. She may as well have been stark nude for all the good they did in covering her. Fortunately for Sarah, being a fully incorporeal entity had many, many perks, one of which being the ability to turn invisible. Picora! She swore, thoroughly embarrassed and annoyed. I'd really prefer if we kept this to ourselves. All right, lassies? Usako nodded, still blushing profusely. Emiko, however, still kept her gaze anywhere except near Sarah. Emiko, you know I'm invisible now, right? You're good. The brunette shook her head. I'm a cell, she said, that one word telling Sarah everything she needed to know. Blimey. You mentioned a Yukiona? Said Usako, trying to steer the conversation back to a relevant topic. Did you mean, like, literally? Are they real? Aye, replied Sarah's disembodied voice. As real as your skull, they do exist. They're a type of spirit like me. Only big difference is their chilly personality, if you catch me drift. Rolling her eyes, Usako continued. So, what happened? Sarah made a sound like she was clearing her throat, though not actually possessing one made it clear she was stalling. Well, you see, I'd rather not have to repeat myself. Aye, that's it. You got your ass handed to you. Is that about right? You got your ass handed to you. Is that about right? Asked Emiko with a playful grin. Unable to lie, Sarah instead made a rude gesture in the Oni's direction before sighing loudly. You could say that. Aye. I underestimated the girl, no doubt there. Though in her defense, I think she was just as surprised to see me as I was to see her. Like she hadn't seen another spirit before or something. What do you mean? Questioned Usako. I mean what I mean, retorted Sarah, matter-of-factly. Odds are good she just became a spirit. Now, if it's all right, could we get back to base so I can get a new change of clothes? I ain't exactly freezing, but this is just embarrassing for me. Upon their arrival, a fresh change of clothes had been prepared for Sarah. The Pinkette was curious how exactly Sarah would put on physical clothes, as she sort of assumed the ones she'd been wearing were just a part of the Banshee. Manifesting to a near fully physical state with little difficulty, Sarah put the new clothes on before phasing back to her usual semi-transparent form, the outfit following suit. I'm gonna miss the old digs, she sighed, a hint of sadness in her voice. Had that since the 20s, I did. Wow, you've been wearing the same clothes for 100 years? Exclaimed Usako. Nay, Sarah laughed, exiting the changing room in a long-sleeve, white-collared blouse and grass-green knee-length skirt. I meant the 1620s. Probably should have specified, I suppose. And it's not like it was me only set, mind ya. Just my favourite. 16, stammered Usako, shocked. Sarah, how old are you? The Banshee laughed again, used to the question. If you factor in when I was alive, then I'd be about 1,000 years old. If you're just counting from the expiration date, then about 978, give or take. Usako now had about as many questions as Sarah did years, but one came to the immediate forefront. Expiration date? What? It's what spirits use in place of a birthday, she replied nonchalantly with a shrug. Most of us don't exactly remember who we were. Not right away. So the day we were born is pretty insignificant compared to when we died. Well, at any rate, this new look definitely fits you very well, Sarah, commented Nonami as she walked in. She had been alerted to the situation and came in as soon as she could, despite her overwhelming tiredness. Aye, thanks, Nonami, replied Sarah, still not used to using the code name when addressing her old friend. Now, you probably want to know what happened. Well, it went something like this. Maybe it is just a freak weather thing, sighed Sarah in slight frustration. She'd been on patrol for roughly an hour now, and there'd been no sign of anything that could be the source of this odd snowstorm. Her search had taken the Banshee to Tsushima Park, a decently sized oasis of nature inside the otherwise concrete slab that made up most of Fumizaki City's area. Not that there were many things that could do this to begin with, she noted. Sure, some races had the ability to influence their environment somewhat, either passively or actively, but not many could cause a weather event to this degree. In the hours she'd been floating around, the accumulation of snow had gone from 2 inches to nearly double that, and it showed no signs of stopping. There's only 2 kinds of beings I can think of that might be doing this, she said aloud, assuming she was alone. Either it's an elemental or a... In her wanderings, Sarah had accidentally collided with another being. A girl with short, curly hair who appeared to be roughly in her teens and had, Sarah realized, pale blue skin. Yuki Onna, she finished. The other girl was clearly one of the snow women of Japanese legend. As if the pale blue skin and hair wasn't to give away, the aura of pure cold radiating off of her told Sarah all she needed to know. Excuse me, miss, she apologized, but I need you to come with me. You had caused a bit of a ruckus, you are. The Yuki Onna, who had apparently not noticed Sarah running into her, jumped at the sound of her voice. I'm... she mumbled, holding her hands out in front of her. Don't hurt me! Hurt ya? Asked Sarah rhetorically. I ain't gonna hurt ya, lass. But I really do need you to come with me. That was when Sarah made a big mistake. She grabbed the girl's arm and tried pulling her. The girl screamed, and from her palms came a blast of intense cold and snow and something else that froze her solid. I still don't understand exactly how she did it, finished Sarah, turning to Nonami, but I do know she's a threat. Maybe not the malicious one, but she's powerful, and clearly not the most emotionally stable right now. Agreed, said Nonami. I'll requisition some Arctic gear, and the 4 of you can go investigate. I'll join up once I've gotten my rest in. I'm sorry if that's an inconvenience. Not at all, replied Sarah. Last thing we need is a restless vampire out there, too. You go get your sleep, and we'll have the situation under control in no time. Usuko stared befuddled at the article of clothing in her hands. According to Nonami, this was supposed to be specially designed Arctic gear that would enable the wearer to survive in near triple-digit negative temperatures. But to her, it just looked like a spandex jumpsuit. It didn't even have a hood, for crying out loud. Ugh, I am not wearing this, she muttered, tossing it aside. I just cannot deal with anything skin tight. I don't know, said Emiko from the next changing room over. I rather like it. And it's not skin tight, Uso-chan. Form-fitting would be the better term for it, I think. Usuko rolled her azure eyes. Yeah, maybe for you, Miss Slender, but... She sighed, gazing down at the persistent belly pudge that had been refusing to go away. It just shows off more than I'm really comfortable with, you know? Stepping out of the room, Emiko walked over to Usuko's, her back turned to the already closed door, so as to give the girl more privacy. I understand, Uso-chan. You can sit this one out if you like, or perhaps I can talk to Mrs. Nakamoto about getting you something else to wear. She paused, mulling over whether or not she wanted to add what she was thinking. But I'm sure you look cuter than you give yourself credit for. Would you mind at least giving it a try? For me? The pinkette nodded hesitantly. On one condition, though. You explain to me how the heck these are supposed to keep us warm? Oh, that's simple, responded Emiko. They're lined with the same compound, Oni excrete, to aid in our own temperature regulation. So it's made of Oni sweat? Asked Usuko, gagging a little. No offense, Emmy. Seriously, but it's not our sweat! Emiko practically shouted. Okay, maybe it sort of is, but it's scientifically proven to keep you warm. And it's artificial anyway. Not like you'll be wrapped up in some random codger's... Well, anyway. Grimacing a bit, Usuko figured she might as well bite the bullet. I can at least keep my underwear on, right? Obviously, sighed Emiko. A few moments later, Usuko emerged. But, well, she whispered hesitantly, feeling more than a little self-conscious in the somewhat revealing outfit. How do I look? Emiko couldn't help but gulp when she saw her in a matching, albeit pink version of the same outfit. Did her heart just skip a beat? Emi-chan, are you feeling alright? You're bright red. I'm... She could barely form words. Yes, I'm fine. As for you, I'd say you look good as well, Uso-chan, she continued, circling Usuko. Maybe a bit snug around your butt, though. Hey! Yelled Usuko. I can't help it. Oi! Would you ladies please keep it down? Called a familiar voice from down the hall. You're giving me a bloody headache. Oh boy, Madrid and Emiko in the same scene. A moment later, none other than Madrid Pendragon, the human leader of Gardna, who had temporarily relocated to Fumizaki for a time, came strutting in. Her blonde hair was kept in its usual messy ponytail, but instead of the semi-casual suit she had been wearing the last time Usuko saw her, she was now wearing a green Arctic suit. Oh, hey, Miss Pendragon, Ms. Takibana, sighed Madrid. Right! Hi, Miss Pendragon. Are you going to be joining us? Indeed, she replied, a slightly feral grin on her face. Been way too long since I've seen any action. Besides, I need to get the rust off this thing somehow. This is supposed to be Cockney, but it's like borderline Australian. Sorry. She patted the ancient-looking sword. Ancient-looking sheathed longsword at her hip. Whoa! Exclaimed Usuko in surprise. You're bringing a sword? How come? Asks the girl whose main weapon is a gold bat, mumbled Madrid. I'll have you know this isn't just any sword. This blade has been passed down the Pendragon line for generations. Emiko gasped suddenly. You mean that's... Madrid smirked cockily. Excalibur? Yeah. The same sword my ancestor used centuries ago to defend Camelot from the Saxons, and best the great serpent of the deep, Bjorntalom. Usuko frowned. You made that second one up. Madrid winced, if barely. Oh, of course not. It's totally based on a true story. Sorry. With Sarah leading the way, the team of Usuko, Emiko, and Madrid made their way deep into the forest behind Tsushima Park that crawled up the side of Mount Aoyama. As they explored the area, the chills Usuko expected to feel were noticeably absent. Albeit begrudgingly, she had to admit that the outfit seemed to be working as advertised. And at least this far into the woods, there wouldn't be anyone else to see her. Well, mostly. Can someone tell me what we're looking for? She asked, a constant blush tinging her cheeks. A Yukiona, replied Emiko. Weren't you paying attention, Usuko? Well, of course I was, she answered rather sharply. I just have no clue what they look like, I mean. The pinkette turned to the Banshee, who was in her floating orb form to conserve energy. Hey, Sarah, you saw her, yeah? What did she look like? The orb shuddered a second, before Sarah's face manifested on its surface. Let me think, she said, her voice echoing around the area, like she was speaking in an auditorium. It was dark, so I couldn't get a good look, but... Well, they all have light blue skin and silver or lighter blue hair. Hers specifically was kind of short, maybe about as long as yours, Usuko. Maybe a bit shorter, but very curly. She was pretty small, too, maybe a few inches shorter than Nami. Wow, said Emiko with a blink. That is short. Wait, do you mean her human form or her vampire form? Because there's a distinction. Sarah sighed. Human form, of course. Otherwise, I'd say she was a bit shorter than you, Ayame. So, we're looking for someone roughly 4'6" to 4'10", clarified Madrid. Curly lock-coloured hair, blue skin and all that. Anything else? Well, she was pretty sure I was going to hurt her for some reason, so I'd say she's probably emotionally distressed. Might still be in panic mode. By now, Uzuko was actually starting to get uncomfortably warm. She knew this outfit was supposed to keep them warm, but this warm? Is anyone else feeling a bit toasty? Asked Margaret, as if reading the Pinkette's mind. I don't know, 'cause I'm not used to this thing or what, but I'm starting to sweat up a right storm. Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing, stated Uzuko in agreement. And is it my imagination, or is the snow melting here? You're absolutely right, said Emiko, glancing around. It's as though the higher we climb, the warmer it gets. That's not supposed to happen typically, right? Uzuko sighed. I don't suppose anyone brought a change of clothes then. If I don't take this off soon, I'll turn into a baked potato. As a matter of fact, I did, replied Mordred triumphantly, pulling the pack off her back, unzipping it, and pulling out several varying outfits. I had to guess for your sizes, princess, but Uzuko is about the same as me, so it should fit. Go ahead, try 'em on. Thankful for the opportunity to change into something more respectable, Uzuko went behind a nearby tree to try the outfit on. It looked like a scaled-down version of her magical girl outfit, with a shorter skirt, less poofy arms, and, the Pinkette noted with a hint of excitement, more than a passing resemblance to her childhood hero Sailor Moon's outfit. Hell yeah, she cheered to herself as she came back to the group. Apparently, Emiko and Mordred had had the same idea, and also changed into their own outfits. Mordred's a pair of cargo shorts, what appeared to be an armored tank top, and some thigh-high tights. Emiko's new outfit was a bit baggy on her. Apparently, Madi hadn't quite gotten the Oni Princess's sizes exactly. A yellow-orange sweater, no sleeves, and tiger striped, much like what she wore in her Oni form, with a pair of jeans about 3 sizes too big. I had to account for your larger frame when you transform, she explained as the group now continued on. You might not have time to ditch them if we get into a fight, so I had to make sure you do fine. You designed these? Asked Uzuko, eliciting a somewhat excited nod from the blonde woman. I did indeed, she said. Well, I didn't sew them personally, but the designs all came from right here. She pointed at her head, smirking. Just 'cause I'm in charge of Gardner doesn't mean I can't have hobbies. Now, we should probably split up for the time being and try to find some sign of this snow woman. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess this unnatural warmth is probably connected. With a nod, the four went off in separate directions. Uzuko had been walking through the trees for about an hour, not really finding anything out of the ordinary, except the occasional confused squirrel, wondering how spring got here so fast. Without any leaves to provide shade, she could tell there was already a sunburn forming on her exposed back. You'd think magical girls would be sunproof, she muttered. Wait, I have an idea. Calling on her magical girl form, she folded her wings over her back, creating a sun shield. Awesome! I keep forgetting I have these now. This is great, she cheered, before getting back to the task at hand. The trek was reminding her too much of the last time she was wandering through brush, chasing after Sarah after the Banshee had kidnapped Kuriko. Although the Pinkette had to begrudgingly admit she wasn't even close to winded. It looked like Nanami's training regiment really was working wonders. Just then, a small breeze caused a piece of paper snagged on a nearby shrub to rustle, catching Uzuko's attention. What's this? She said, crouching down to get a better look. It was rectangular in shape, with several characters written down in clearly hand-drawn ink. Her knowledge of history and the occult kicked into overdrive. Ooh, a talisman! She exclaimed. But what's it doing all the way out here? Reaching out her right hand to grab it, Uzuko felt a bolt of searing pain shoot up her arm, causing her to fall back and shout. What the hell was that? Yelled Uzuko, glancing over at the talisman. Don't tell me it was that thing. How in... Uzuko! A familiar voice bellowed in concern as it approached. Are you all right? The Pinkette flinched reflexively as Emiko, in her Oni form, crashed through the trees towards her. The clothes Mordred had provided her were managing to stay on, though the jeans had ripped through a bit. Yeah, I'm okay, confirmed Uzuko as she tried standing up. Watch out, though, that... That thing did something to me. I think it's an old Shinto talisman, Emi-chan. The Oni scoffed. Come on, Usuko, really? What would something like that be doing out here? Nonetheless, she reached down to investigate this strange slip of paper. What peculiar markings. Let's show this to Madra! The Pinkette face-palmed. Told you so. She sighed, reaching for her phone. I'll let her know we found something. Yeah, thanks, grunted Emiko as she shifted back to her human form. Hey, Emmy, asked Usuko while texting Madrid about their find. Got another question since we have a couple minutes. How come you don't wear a yokai crystal but can still transform? Oh, that's simple, replied the brunette. I'm always technically in Oni form. I just use a basic illusion to look human. The only problem is it doesn't affect my eyes. Thus the glasses, finished Usuko, recalling an earlier discussion the two had on the subject. That's pretty cool. But if you don't need it, why does Ray wear one? Emiko couldn't help but laugh at the Red Oni's expense. She's terrible at illusions, though most Red Oni are. Typically, the best they can manage is basic invisibility, and even then... well, I shouldn't let racial bias get the better of me. I'm sorry about that, Uso-chan. About that time, Madrid emerged from the trees to join her teammates. So, you found one too, then? She asked. Indeed, responded Emiko. Wait, two? You found one as well? The blonde woman began rummaging around in her rucksack before pulling out a small handful of similar papers. Won't say that, she stated. Banishment magic. Pretty potent. Doesn't affect humans, and only monsters if they touch them. Well, what's the point of them, then? Asked Usuko. Excuse me. To keep people like me away, called Sarah faintly. These are like kryptonite to spirits. Can't go near them. Hurts a lot. Jeez, muttered Usuko. That's not good, but at least we... Her words trailed off as the air temperature began dropping rapidly. She must have noticed the talismans were gone, said Madrid, pulling a heavy coat out of the same rucksack. How in the heck did all that fit in there, thought Usuko. Aye, replied Sarah. She's practically headed straight for you, she is. Best be ready. Usuko, already in her magical girl form, nodded and turned to Emiko, who had once again shifted to Oni mode. Snow began to fall, and a fog began to roll in as the Pinkette started shivering. Oi! Shouted Madrid into the mist, her breath clearly visible in the freezing air. I know you're out there, and we aren't here to cause you any trouble, love. But we do need to have a bit of a chat, so if you'd be so kind as to come here, we can get this whole thing sorted out, eh? After about 30 seconds or so of no reply, she turned to Emiko, smiling awkwardly. It occurs to me she may not speak English. Would you mind translating, Your Majesty? Yeah, sure, replied Emiko with a grunt. And when we're out like this, just call me Emiko. It's much faster. With that, Emiko shouted Madrid's previous declaration into the now incredibly dense fog, only in Japanese, the language the Yuki Onna was most likely to speak. Came a mumbled reply from somewhere. Oh, okay. But please don't hurt me. I didn't mean to do it. From the fog came a girl, no taller than Kuriko, Usuko noted, with, pale blue skin, blue lips, curly teal blue hair, teal eyes, and wearing a white kimono tied with a red obi. As she approached, Usuko also noted the distinct look of terror on her face. This poor girl must have been through something awful recently. There, that's much better, said Emiko, smiling warmly. Now, before we start asking questions, why don't we introduce ourselves, okay, said the snow girl said, trembling. But I'm sorry, but I don't know my name. Materializing from the mist, Sarah nodded in understanding. You just became a spirit, didn't you, lassie? She nodded, looking down. I think so. Anyway, I don't remember much. Just that I was sad. I was running. And then snow. Oh, from before. The one I... Her voice trailed off as Sarah sighed. Don't worry, girl. No hard feelings. Usako decided to speak up. Hey, if you don't mind... Wait. Hey, so do you mind if we call you Hime for now? At least until we can figure out your real name? She looked at the pinkette like she'd just given her $1 million. Yes! She practically shouted with excitement. A name of my own! Thank you. Not a problem, replied Usako with a grin. My name is Usako Takibana, by the way. The tall one is my best friend, Emiko Ayame. You've already met Sarah O'Malley. As for the blonde lady, her name's Modred Pennybags. Pendragon, corrected Modred with an exasperated sigh for probably the 20th time. Sorry, said Usako. Pendragon. Now that introductions are out of the way, we need to ask some questions, said Modred. Firstly, do you have any sense how long you've been, well... Dead? Replied Hime. No. Well, maybe 3 months? That's about how far back my memories go. Though without a way to keep track, It's all well and good, replied Modred. Just an estimate is fine. Second question. Why did you come down to the city? It isn't safe there for people like you know? I didn't, answered Hime, bowing her head. I didn't have a choice. There's a man who lives around here who put down these pieces of paper that hurt when I go near them. I can't go anywhere on the mountain, so I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Modred nodded in understanding. That's without our investigation led us to believe, but I wanted to hear it from you. Okay, third question. How come you're so powerful for a Yukiona? That question caught both Hime and Usako off guard. I don't understand what you mean. I think, she replied. Is something wrong? No, not necessarily at least, replied Modred. Just, you froze another spirit solid. Being honest with you, that just doesn't happen normally. Sarah decided to jump in. When you froze me, it felt like you had something else backing you up. I don't know how to describe it, but... Hime appeared to shuffle awkwardly. Last month, I was minding my own business when this blue orb thing shot into me. I suddenly felt like I was, drowning, but then I was fine. I woke up and everything around me had iced over. Modred's eyes widened at that. It sounded like what Nonami, Ray, and Sarah had described to them when they had encountered similar orbs. That day, 4 orbs had been accounted for, shooting out of Usako's body. Could this girl have been the recipient of the 4th? It certainly sounded like it, but why her? Destiny, maybe? She thought with a chuckle. Though a descendant of a literal destined king, Modred never really put much faith into stuff like that. She was a believer in hard facts and truth. And the fact was, this girl was quite possibly in danger if the minions of Automatus came looking for her. All right, she declared with a smile. You're absolutely not in any trouble, Ms. Hime. But I would ask you to come with us, back to headquarters for now. You're in danger out here from foes you don't even know you have. Hime looked, well, apprehensive, and afraid of leaving her home behind again. So Usako stepped in to try and explain what Modred's rather cryptic words meant. That orb that went into you made you a target for a group of bad people who might come looking for you. I know it's a bit scary, but this is for your protection. I promise, you're going to be in great hands, all right? She smiled, spreading her arms wide to offer the incorporeal girl a hug. So what do you say, Hime? There was a moment's pause before she nodded, smiling gently. Oh, okay, Usako, I'll trust you. Modred then reached into her bag and pulled out a clear yokai crystal, handing it to the girl. If you'd be so kind as to put that on, that way we can get you back to HQ without another impromptu blizzard. That all right, love? Sure, said Hime, nodding as she put the necklace on. Immediately, the gem turned pale blue, while simultaneously, Hime's skin and hair changed to more human tones. Her eyes, though, remained blue, and an aura of sheer coldness still emanated off of her. Wow! She exclaimed. Am I alive again? Immediately, she tried testing the theory, running at and subsequently inside of a tree. Nay, responded Sarah, you just look the part, sorry to say. What's dead can't usually come back. Hime, phasing back out of the tree, looked down, slightly dejected. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to the girls, a large, shadowy entity watched their movements very carefully. And that's the end of part 1 of book 2 of War of the Yokai. This is part of the stream where I will take any questions or comments or anything. If you got anything you want to say, now's the time. Hour and a half, dag-nab. Longest recording to date. Like I said, this is going to be 4 parts here. We're going to do another one Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then I got plans for something else Friday. I'll probably do the epilogue bonus chapter on Sunday. So, yeah. Because, yeah, there is sort of an epilogue that's like between books 2 and 3. It's the Christmas special. But yeah, right? Hour and a half already. Actually, it's an hour and 32, but yeah. Like I said, if you got anything, any questions, any comments, this is absolutely the time, my friends. I love talking about it. Oh. It would appear I have dipped below 200 during this stream. Oh, I'm sad now. No questions? Okay, that's fine. Well, I'll probably end the stream here now. Make sure you tune back in tomorrow for part 2. Yeah, part 2 is getting good. So, hope to see you there. Where's my end stream? Yeah. So until next time, take care. Have a good night. Bye, Anara.